when students have done something that just doesn't work in the school community, whatever that may be, suspension was the only answer that we thought of. You go home and think about it, or we'll see you in 3 to 5 days, and when you come back, you come back.
It was kind of like this business-like procedure, do this, then that. And there was kind of like, okay, next, I'm finished with that incident is now over, and there was never any discussion about who's been harmed and listening to people who were on the receiving end of a problem or who were negatively impacted by someone else's choice. It was kind of, they went away, then they came back, and it was like, it never happened.
Sometimes I felt like I didn't know what to do with students, other than if you're not meeting our expectations for behavior, then you don't belong here anymore. And so we would expel or transfer to another site. And that didn't feel like we were really helping anybody, really meeting their needs. So I felt like a disciplinarian, but I didn't feel like a teacher.
I would much rather have the student that did something wrong in my class back that very next day, understanding why they had to leave for an hour beforehand, as opposed to leaving for 3 days, no conversations, and then coming back and thinking everything's fine.
In Santa Rosa City Schools, we were looking at some significant numbers and suspensions and expulsions and some ethnicity issues. And so we started focusing 2 years ago on how do we do this in a different way. And that's when we came upon restorative justice.
It turned out that we expelled students at a much higher rate than average, much higher rate than average in the county, much higher rate than average in the district. And so much so that we're almost an outlier. Our practices had become truly zero tolerance, and we were, suspending or expelling kids, I think, about 4 times the rate, four times the average rate. And with number of suspensions, I believe we were fourth in the state.
Now the administrators have the opportunity to make real changes in the student's behavior, where they can say, this is what occurred and this is what these are the consequences, but let's look at the situation and maybe come to an understanding of it, so you don't get suspended from school. Because when kids are suspended from the classroom or suspended from school, there's no benefit to them whatsoever.
I had to, I don't really want to hurt people's feelings. I thought I was just being selfish in the beginning. I was like, oh, well, nobody would get impacted by it, but a lot of people did. I'm changing a lot. Like, if you knew me back then, you would be like, wow, she did a big transformation.
Now, the reality is that kids have to articulate to people who have been impacted by their choice, and they have to understand, and they get to hear how their choices have harmed other people. And to me, that's important, because that actually, there was never really any real closure before. It was kind of like this, business-like or procedure-like process. When your kid got in trouble, you do this and then this. Now there's this kind of conversation around it that hopefully brings it to a better end, and I think allows people to kind of feel like, yes, it's now, we've dealt with it now, it's really over, and there's some closure.
It's like the first time I've got in trouble for this, for a fight and going into a program. So it was kind of nerve-wracking at first, but then as we started going to the program more and more often, I got used to it, talking to more people, and I started learning new things about how to solve problems a different way, in a different manner. I learned to control my anger, not to fight it, but to be able to talk it out. I feel like I talk more to Ms. Gannon now, because last year when I was here, I never talked to none of the staff members or any of them here now. But now that I feel like I could talk a lot more with them and share.
Some people thought it was going to be the fuzzy-wuzzy approach, and okay, we're all going to sit around and have counseling. But it really isn't like that. It is a very structured way of asking pointed questions. What has been the hardest thing for you in this experience? Again, the impact that it has made on you. And when everybody takes the time to listen, great things happen. I mean, it's all about building relationships.
There's also a huge amount of accountability. So what I dislike is when people think, oh, you know, we've gone from zero tolerance to complete tolerance, because it's not tolerance, it's just it's accountability, and it's just accountability in a different form. We're helping people grow. You make a mistake, you take responsibility, you find a way to make it right, and you're accountable for making it right. You have to follow through on that action plan.
Oftentimes I've felt through the 17 years that I've sent my children to school that the main concern has been about their academics. And the social emotional piece to me is really critical. I don't feel that as a parent I can do this alone. And I feel like the learning institution and the people in the community are a big part of helping me raise my child. I don't think as a parent any of us can do this alone.
And what I really like about this program is the kids, they're not coming here to make excuses for what they did. You know, they're coming into this knowing that they made a mistake, they want to make it better, they're owning up to what they did. So it's not an adversarial thing like sitting in a courtroom where they're trying to prove their innocence. You know, they're stepping up, they know what they did wrong, and they want to make it better, and we talk about it, and, you know, just the playing field's just different, and it's just, it really helps the program knowing that these kids, you know, they start off knowing that, hey, I'm here to make this better. I want to make it right.
The impact of restorative justice for Santa Rosa schools has been astounding. The most important factor in my mind is that we have had one suspended expulsion or expulsion hearing make it to the board in this school year. Last year there were 60 at this time. A year ago before that there were 120 before the board. So if you think in 1 year we reduced it by 50% and then we've gone from 60 to 1 in this last year, it's really astounding.
The shift to restorative justice has been almost instantly and significantly successful. And I'd say it's the one thing on our board that not only do we all agree on, but we all enthusiastically agree on it.
And if you want numbers in terms of money, the savings in ADA through January of this year, ADA savings and administrative savings is $238,000 in Santa Rosa City Schools. That will likely annualize to as much as $400,000 a year.
Let's just learn through these programs to look through the other person's point of view, being in their shoes and be looking out for the outcome that's going to be happening in the future.
I didn't want to do it, you know, and then like when I first started coming here, like I don't know, like I started like learning more about myself, and I really liked it.
Before I went to the conference, I always saw people walking down the streets as strangers, but now after that conference they informed me that I'm also part of the community, so now every time I walk down the street, I see somebody walking down the street and I see them as a community member now.